What's going on? Welcome back to the channel. So today I want to talk to you about SoundHound. I want to go over some of the data points, what's really moving it, and where I see things going. Before we get into any of that, make sure to hit that thumbs up, and with that, let's get right to it. So SoundHound's down 4.62%, 1945 the low, 2040 the high, and 9.5 million shares being traded. So kind of on the low end. In fact, during the pre-market, did have a low of 1879. So bouncing off of a key support level. So give yourself a shout out if you were awake at that time and able to buy the dip, because that's a pretty good return on investment even from just the pre-market. But nonetheless, though, there hasn't really been all that much in news from SoundHound, so it's largely just piggybacking off of the broader market. And the market's fearful because of the regional banks. So we had some regional banks unveiling their earnings yesterday, showing that delinquencies are kind of increasing, which completely contradicts exactly what the old school brick and mortar banks, a lot of the big banks, said on Tuesday. So of course, this shows some signs of cracking among the regional banks, no different than what happened at the beginning of 2024. What got us out of that slump in 2024, though, was earnings season. A lot of companies kicking ass, taking names, hitting key metrics. So potentially we might have this fear go away going into next week. So again, a lot of big companies are going to be unveiling their earnings and all the other fun jazz. So if you do believe that we're going to be seeing more upside, might be a good time to buy. When it comes down to other kind of situations with SoundHound, there was a Form 4 that was submitted after hours yesterday, which did show that the CFO, 𝗪𝗓𝗧𝗛, if I'm saying that right, did sell some stock, 30,000 and also just over 30,000, both being done on the 14th. And it was all planned. So part of this right here, because of course they're in a blackout period right now. So this is how I've kind of argued with some people in the past. Some people think that this isn't a big deal, which I completely do agree that yes, people need money and whatever else. But when I first started to cover SoundHound, when it was at like $6-7, Wall Street sees all of this as kind of a red flag. And the reason why they see it as a red flag is, like, if it's just a one-off, so be it. But if you're starting to see a trend, which we technically are, so we see a Form 4, 144, Form 4, Form 4, Form 4, all of this is transaction code S, meaning they are selling for just not for tax purposes, just a straight up sell. So we can kind of see that they haven't really put out any 8Ks since it looks like September the 9th. Everything else other than that has been selling. So in my opinion, Wall Street sees that as a negative, because of course, why would insiders sell if they see significant upside? No different than what happened back in when it was like $6-7 when I first started to cover SoundHound. That was one of the big sentiment killers for SoundHound. So right now, I don't really see this Form 4 as something to overly panic over, but at the same time, it's something to be somewhat aware of. So keep that in mind behind the scenes. So let me know your thoughts on this. If you think that this is something to be cautious over, because again, CFO selling at this price, even though they do have a significant amount of shares still after these transactions, it's still more of a sentiment in my opinion. Aside from that though, shorts. So shorts are increasing 186,000 shares, 30.67% of the free floats being shorted, works out to be 112 million shares overall being shorted. Cost to borrow average 1.1, and you can kind of see right here, shorts have returned a lot recently. So roughly September 3rd, 4th, it was around 34% short interest to where it is now. So by shorts returning, that does essentially add buying pressure. And that's one attributing factor why the stock price has also been moving higher. At the same time, because we haven't really had that much in news from SoundHound, we've had a couple of things here and there, but nothing like that you need to stop what you're doing and buy SoundHound. So one big thing as well, aside from shorts returning, that's been helping SoundHound move higher is just massive investments in AI and tech. So market sees that as optimistic. Plus, we've seen a lot of crazy blockbuster kind of partnerships, and typically that is a precursor for a massive expansion. So that's how the market's been seeing AI and tech lately. SoundHound's largely piggybacked off of that. Aside from that though, looking at the options, 4.2 million in calls, 1.5 in puts, 52% of all the options being done are bullish in nature. So despite it actually selling off today, big money actually does see more upside. From a bull standpoint, you see a consensus for it to be roughly closing at, looks like 20 for the most part, and 21 going into next week. Bears are anticipating for it to be sub, kind of between that. There's not really much correlation, sub 20, sub 19, give or take. With today being Friday though, you do have this for open interest. So you have 18, or at the $18 strike price, 12,000, 5,000 at 18.50, 38,000 at that 19, 3,000 at the 19.50, and then 14,000 at that 20. So if SoundHound does kind of push a little bit higher, just watch for shorts to get a little bit more active if it does get close to 20. So just keep that in mind. Aside from that though, these are all the transactions occurring on the secondary market above $100,000. So not overly that much, most of which is actually selling. You do see a fair amount of buying as well, but still the consensus is that institutions are selling. Aside from that, these are all the transactions occurring on the dark pool. I'm kind of orienting it based on premium, so top down, and we're not really seeing all that much. So the largest transaction was 603,505, and then so forth and so forth. So nothing too crazy in my opinion. Right now with a 1949, it is trading between this R2 and this R1. So 1860 is going to be a strong support. 2029 is going to be the next strong target / resistance, kind of including the pre-market. For the most part, it's actually touched both of those. So definitely a lot of volatility, perfect for day traders and swing traders. If you are looking for my most up-to-date price target on SoundHound, pop over to my Patreon. Just did a kind of post on that yesterday, and so I went over where I see things going in the short term and also a little bit longer term. So kind of worthwhile to pop over there and take a look at that. Aside from all of that fun stuff on the actual chart itself, it's still, even though we are consolidating yesterday and today, things are still looking pretty good. So it is above that 10-day moving average. So kind of shows that the momentum is still kind of there, but still just kind of watch for that. We haven't actually really broken below that 10-day moving average since, looks like, end of September. So it's been doing fairly well since then. But like I said, a lot of that has to do with just kind of the whole broader sector. So SoundHound's really benefited from that. Looking for news, nothing really crazy has been coming out whatsoever. So it's, like I said, just been piggybacking off the broader market. Looking at this, so the market position, you see a lot of willing buyers up until pretty much that 1739. So again, that's kind of a good thing. So even if it does consolidate, you have a lot of willing buyers there. Flip side, you have a little bit of a gap here at 2035. So ultimately you have some strong kind of sellers there. So if SoundHound has something good up their sleeve, then you could see a nice push higher. But I think given where stochastic RSI is at right now, which is around 77, it is rather high. So again, I think this pull lower that's been happening the last couple of trading days is going to really be healthy for SoundHound. I know it doesn't seem like it, but I think bigger picture, it is going to be relatively healthy for the technicals. So let me know your thoughts on SoundHound. On a side note, while I'm actually here, there hasn't really been all that much in crazy new analysts ratings. So we did get one yesterday, a new buy, 18 to 26. So increasing it from 18 to 26, so pretty good stuff. Actually a little bit better than pretty good. That is very, very good. And I believe that is the highest rating now for SoundHound. So $26 definitely deserving of a round of applause. Unfortunately, timing wise, couldn't have been worse, but whatever, it is what it is. So let me know your thoughts on SoundHound. Are you buying? Are you selling? What do you see? Like, where do you see things going? In my opinion, I do feel, especially if we're going to compare what happened in 2024, I do feel like we will be kind of trending down a little bit. So just watch for a lot of those support points that I did mention to dollar cost average or whatever else. But bigger picture, the tech and AI sector is going to explode, and almost every analyst is kind of agreeing upon that. So I do feel that, yes, if you're trying to kind of think bigger picture, right now is an optimum time to buy. If you're one of those ones that wants to catch the exact bottom, I feel like there might be a little bit more consolidation, but still pop over to my Patreon. I go over a lot of that into further detail. and give some targets both ways. So with all that said, appreciate all of you watching. And then one final thing, pop over to my Discord. It is completely free. A lot of good people talking about stocks, options, crypto, everything that you ever need in life. With all that said, appreciate all of you watching.